a name that did not exist. In the autumn of 1307, in the dungeons beneath Paris, a name appeared in the historical record for the first time. Inquisitors working under royal warrant were questioning Knights Templar about the secret rites of their order, and under torture, the knights began to describe an idol. They called it Baphomet. The word had never appeared in any document before that moment. No chronicle, no theological treatise, no traveler's account from 2 centuries of crusades. It did not exist before the arrests. And after the arrests, it would define the Templars forever. What the knights confessed. The confessions were detailed, and in a way that should concern us. They were consistent. Different knights, interrogated separately, described similar things. The idol was a decapitated head, sometimes bearded, sometimes androgynous, sometimes described as luminous. The knights allegedly prayed to it, kissed it in reverence, and credited it with the order's agricultural wealth and military success. Some described it as having 2 faces. Some mentioned a cat. The descriptions do not fully agree, which tells you something important about the conditions under which they were produced. The problem with testimony under torture. The problem with torture is it creates compliance, not accuracy. The Inquisitors had a precise template of what heresy was supposed to look like, drawn from decades of prosecuting Cathars and other dissidents. And the men they tortured eventually gave them what they needed to hear. Historians of the trials largely agree on this. The confessions are evidence of what the Inquisitors feared, not of what the Templars did. What is genuinely harder to explain is not the confessions, but the name itself. The simplest explanation. Baphomet is not a word in Latin, French, Occitan, Arabic, or any language spoken in 13th century Western Europe. The most straightforward theory is that it is a corruption of Mahomet, the medieval French rendering of Muhammad. In the medieval Christian imagination, Muslims worshipped Muhammad as a physical idol, which was entirely false, but widely believed. Accusing the Templars of idol worship borrowed directly from that existing slander. They had spent 2 centuries in the Islamic world, the theory goes, and they had come back corrupted. Baphomet was Muhammad, was the worst thing the Inquisitors could imagine, and so they imagined it. This theory is plausible and probably correct, but it is not the only theory, and the alternative is strange enough that you deserve to hear it. The cipher that changes everything? In 1854, the French occultist Eliphas Levi pointed out that if you write Baphomet in Hebrew letters and apply the Atbash cipher, an ancient substitution code in which the last letter of the alphabet replaces the first, the second to last replaces the second, and so on, the result is Sophia, wisdom. The Greek philosophical concept that runs through Gnosticism, through Neoplatonism, through every esoteric current the Templars might plausibly have encountered in the Crusader states. The Atbash cipher is real. It appears in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Jeremiah. The decoding is mathematically accurate. Whether it means anything historically is a different question. Because Levi was a ceremonial magician constructing an elaborate occult system and had every incentive to discover hidden connections. But the cipher works, and the word it produces is not random. 2 centuries at the crossroads. Here is the question the cipher forces you to ask. What could the Templars actually have encountered in 2 centuries in the Holy Land? They were based in Jerusalem, on the Temple Mount itself, built above the ruins of Solomon's Temple. They were in sustained contact with Jewish Kabbalists, with Sufi mystics, with Druze communities, with the intellectual traditions of the Islamic Golden Age. They were literate, wealthy, and operating at the precise intersection of 3 civilizations that did not otherwise communicate. If any Western institution in the medieval period had the opportunity to absorb genuinely heterodox ideas that would have been incomprehensible and therefore heretical to the Church in Rome, it was the Templars. Whether they acted on that opportunity is unresolvable. The physical evidence from the Paris Temple, the archives, the library, the treasury was seized in 1307, and has never been fully accounted for. The records that survive are Inquisition transcripts produced under duress. We are working with the worst possible evidence base for understanding what the Templars actually believed, which is exactly how it stayed for 500 years. 5 centuries of silence. For 5 centuries after the trials, Baphomet was nearly dormant. The word appeared occasionally in occult literature as a dark reference point, a footnote from the Templar trials that serious writers cited and then moved past. It had no developed image, no mythology, no constructed theology. It was a word in a transcript attached to a crime belonging to a dead order, the man who drew the devil. Then in 1854, Eliphas Levi published his major work on ritual magic and included in it an illustration he had drawn himself. A winged, goat-headed androgynous figure seated in a formal position of command. One hand pointing upward, one hand pointing down, a torch burning between its horns, a caduceus rising from its lap, a crescent moon at each side. He called it the Baphomet of Mendes, attaching it to an Egyptian goat cult that modern Egyptology does not recognize. The name, the image, and the Egyptian connection were all, to varying degrees, invented. It did not matter. The image became definitive within a generation. Every subsequent visual representation of Baphomet in Western occultism descends from Levi's illustration. A Satanic Temple's bronze statue, the one installed across from 10 Commandments monuments in American state capitals, is a direct descendant of that single drawing. The most recognized symbol of occult evil in the modern Western world was created by one man, working alone in Paris in 1854, based on a word that first appeared in a medieval torture transcript, attached to an order that the Catholic Church itself later privately concluded was probably innocent. A document in the wrong drawer. That last point deserves its own moment. In 2001, a Vatican historian named Barbara Friel discovered a document in the secret archives that had been misfiled for 700 years. It was the Chinon parchment, dated 1308, in which Pope Clement V privately absolved the Templars of heresy after conducting his own investigation. He found no genuine evidence of the crimes. He then allowed the order to be suppressed and its members burned anyway, because Philip IV needed it done, and the papacy needed Philip IV. The Church knew. It has the document. The Templars were innocent of the charges for which they were executed, and the institution that condemned them recorded its own private acknowledgement of that fact, and then filed it in the wrong drawer for 700 years. What the symbol actually is, so here's what we are left with. An order that was probably innocent. A name that may be a linguistic accident or may encode a genuine esoteric concept, depending on how much weight you give a 16th century cipher. An image invented in the 19th century by a French magician who was building a mythology, not reporting one. And a symbol that now represents the single most potent shorthand for occult evil in contemporary Western culture. Baphomet is not what the Templars worshipped. The evidence strongly suggests the Templars worshipped nothing heretical at all. Baphomet is what 7 centuries of projection, fear, and imaginative need required us to put in the silence they left behind. The Templars of old are gone. The symbol they were accused of serving grew larger after their deaths than any real institution they built while alive. There is a word for that in the literary tradition the Templars helped inspire. The word is legend. And the Templars have been better at generating legend in death than most empires are at generating history while they still exist.